There's a mistake football keeps making when it talks about Erling Haaland. It keeps asking who creates for him. That question already assumes the wrong hierarchy, because Haaland is not the endpoint of a system. He is the force that reorders it. When people say he needs service, they're technically correct in the way gravity needs mass. But they misunderstand what's really happening. Haaland does not wait for chances. He reshapes defensive behavior until chances are inevitable. And this truth becomes clearer, not weaker, once individual creators leave the picture. In modern Premier League discourse, strikers are often framed as dependent variables. If a winger leaves, production drops. If a playmaker declines, output suffers. If the system breaks, the striker fades. This has been true for many elite forwards, even legendary ones. But Haaland exists in a different category, not because he scores more goals, but because his goals are structural outcomes, not stylistic ones. Remove one assister. Remove two. Change personnel. Rotate wide players. Adjust build-up roles. The output doesn't disappear, it reroutes. Why? Because Haaland's primary impact does not begin with the ball. It begins with space occupation. Football analysis traditionally treats movement as a reaction. The pass comes first. The run follows. Haaland reverses this order. His runs are not responses. They are instructions. Defenders react before the ball is played. Midfields compress earlier. Backlines drop deeper than intended. Entire defensive units shift shape to account for a possibility, not an action. That is movement functioning as a pre-pass. And this is why Haaland's dominance persists even when creative roles rotate. Because the system does not need a singular genius to find him. It needs someone, anyone, to play into the space he has already forced open. The standard defensive response to Haaland is obvious. Stay tight, double early, collapse the box. But this solution carries a hidden cost. When Haaland is aggressively marked, defenders stop defending space and start defending him. That distinction matters. Space-oriented defending is collective. Man-oriented defending is reactive. Once defenders fixate on Haaland's body position, two things happen. Backlines lose synchronization and midfield coverage becomes distorted. This is not theory. It's observable behavior across multiple seasons. Teams that prioritize denying Haaland touches often concede from late box arrivals, cutbacks, second phase chaos, weak side overloads. Haaland may not touch the ball, but he touches the structure. That influence does not show up in individual stat columns, but it shows up on scoreboards. Low pressure matches flatter attackers. Open games, high lines, rotated squads. But pressure matches strip football down to fundamentals. Finals, title deciders, knockout legs, moments where one goal changes everything. These are the games where dependency is exposed. And these are the games where Haaland's value becomes clearest. Because under pressure, creativity decreases. Space shrinks. Risk disappears. Decision-making slows. In those conditions, players who rely on volume touches fade. Haaland doesn't, because his threat does not depend on freedom. It depends on certainty. One run, one hesitation, one misjudged step. That's enough. There are forwards who express football. They dribble. They improvise. They experiment. And there are forwards who conclude it. Haaland belongs to the second category. His game is not built on expression. It's built on resolution. This is why his shot selection looks conservative. He doesn't attempt low-probability brilliance. He waits for inevitability. And inevitability in football is terrifying because defenders cannot negotiate with it. One of the laziest criticisms of Haaland is this. If he doesn't score, he's not involved. This criticism misunderstands involvement entirely. Involvement is not measured by touches. It is measured by consequence. A midfielder taking 80 touches with no defensive distortion is involved in play, but not in outcome. Haaland can take 18 touches and dictate the entire defensive map. Every touch he doesn't take is often the result of defenders overcompensating. Silence can be pressure. Elite defenders do not wait until the match begins to adjust. They plan. Against Haaland, Those plans begin days earlier. Deeper starting lines, reduced offside traps, conservative fullback positioning, earlier box congestion. These are preemptive concessions. Teams accept territorial loss to avoid terminal punishment. That alone tells you something. Before the ball is kicked, Haaland has already altered the match. Even advanced metrics struggle with Haaland. Why? Because most data models reward interaction, touches, passes, carries. Haaland's value lies in reaction. The reactions he causes are rarely attributed to him statistically. A defender dropping early, a midfielder tracking deeper, a winger hesitating on the press. These are unlogged events, but they accumulate. And when they accumulate, systems break. Speed fades. Agility declines. But timing ages slowly. Haaland's game is built on anticipation, positioning, decision speed, spatial dominance. These traits peak later and decline slower. As long as he can sprint in short bursts, not long carries, he remains lethal. That's why his profile projects durability in the Premier League. Not because he will always overpower defenders, but because he will always outarrive them. The most dangerous misunderstanding in football analysis is confusing fit with dependence. Yes, Haaland thrives in structured teams, but that does not mean he is dependent on them. Structure amplifies him. It does not create him. He would warp any organized environment because his threat is universal. Timing, power, certainty, those qualities travel. There's a mental cost to defending inevitability. Against dribblers, defenders feel agency. They can win duels, force mistakes, anticipate tricks. Against Haaland, the contest feels pre-decided. You could do everything right and still lose. That erodes confidence. And once confidence goes, precision follows. Football evolves in cycles. First, brilliant shocks. Then it's admired. Then it's normalized. Then it's countered. Haaland is still in the shock to normalization phase. Clubs are collecting data. Analysts are refining models. Defenders are adapting. But inevitability takes longer to solve than creativity, because you cannot outlaw timing. When history evaluates strikers, it doesn't ask how they look. It asks what happened when they were there. Haaland's presence changes outcomes, not aesthetics, not narratives. Outcomes. That is the rarest currency in elite football. Modern football compresses space and time. Pressing is coordinated. Defenses are drilled. Margins are thin. In that environment, players who thrive under pressure dominate eras. Not artists. Finishers. Resolvers. Haaland belongs to that lineage. Football doesn't begin when the ball reaches the striker. It begins when defenders start worrying about what might happen. With Erling Haaland, that worry starts long before kickoff. And by the time the ball arrives, the game has already been decided. This isn't a highlight reel, and it isn't hype. This is the anatomy of inevitability. If this analysis sharpened how you see football, subscribe to PulseScope, because dominance doesn't start at kickoff, and neither does understanding.